The Galactic Senate chamber was the largest hall in the known universe, stretched so high that the roof was lost in shadow, supported by silver pillars carved from asteroid stone and glowing with soft blue light. Rows of curved seats climbed upward in circles, each row holding dozens of species. Together, they formed a living ring around the center platform, a stage of power where decisions were made for thousands of star systems. Every species was present. The ancient Far sat in silence, their pale skin folded with centuries of age. The fiery Forans leaned forward in their crimson robes, their sharp eyes burning with restless energy. The towering Svar Dominion senators clicked their claws on the armrests of their seats, tails coiled with pride. Voices of hundreds of languages filled the chamber, layered together like waves crashing against each other. But at the very center of this storm of voices, one seat remained empty. It was a throne, larger and higher than the rest, built of black stone that shimmered like obsidian. For centuries, it had stood untouched. A glowing sigil of earth floated above it, a symbol of a people who never came. Every senator's gaze avoided it, as if looking too long was dangerous. The empty throne of earth, no one had dared to ask about it in living memory. It was simply there like a ghost in the heart of the Senate. But today, someone asked. Kayak sat at his new desk, his forefingers tapping nervously on the polished surface. His scales were still young, dark green with hints of copper, marking him as a foreign diplomat at the beginning of his career. His heart beat fast. He had dreamed of this chamber his whole life, studied the politics, memorized the alliances, and now here he was, yet his mind was not on treaties or votes. His eyes kept drifting to the empty throne. The question burned in his chest until he could no longer hold it back. His voice carried clear across the chamber. Why is Earth's seat still empty? The Senate froze. The chatter of dozens of species died at once. The air itself seemed to tighten, as though the chamber held its breath. Kix felt hundreds of eyes turned toward him. Some senators shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Others glanced at one another, waiting to see who would speak. A few lowered their gaze, refusing to look at him at all. Finally, Chancellor overrose. The reptilian giant's scales shimmered bronze under the chamber light. His voice was deep, echoing like thunder against the chamber walls. Earth has chosen not to participate, he said slowly. They refused to attend, refused to vote. They refused to rule. His tone was careful, each word sharp and heavy. Kix frowned. But why? Another silence. Then, from the high seats of the Far, an elder shifted. His skin was pale as bone, his eyes milky white and blind with age. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but it carried across the entire hall, because they do not need. A chill ran through Kix's body. The elder raised his head, though his eyes saw nothing. That is what terrifies us. The chamber grew heavier. Kix looked around, expecting laughter, dismissal, someone to call the words nonsense. But no one argued. No one spoke at all. The silence was worse than shouting. KYX tried to steady his breath. They are just another species, he said, though his own voice trembled. The same as us? No. The elder shook his head slowly. Not the same. Enough of this, Chancellor oversnapped, his reptilian eyes narrowing. Earth is irrelevant. We do not speak of them because there is nothing to speak of. But Kix had seen it, now the fear in their eyes, the tension in their voices. He was young but not blind. The Senate was afraid of Earth, afraid of something that should have been long forgotten. Before he could push further, a sharp beeping cut through the silence. Every senator turned toward the massive display that hung above the chamber. The screen flickered, static filling the air. An officer at the control station spoke quickly. Emergency transmission. Outer rim sector. Identified distress signal. Static cleared into a grainy video. The image shook violently, the sound warped with noise. A figure appeared blurry, almost swallowed by distortion. Their voice cracked through the signal. We found it. We found the truth. The Senate must know. The feed cut to black. The chamber was silent again. But this time, the silence felt like a wound. The officer swallowed hard and turned to face the Senate. His face was pale. The transmission came from an abandoned human research station. The words hit harder than any weapon. Gasps echoed around the chamber. The far elder bowed his head. The SFAR senators hissed uneasily. Kix felt his stomach twist. The humans had left that station centuries ago. At least that was what everyone believed. But the signal was real. The fear in that broken voice was real. That night, Kix could not sleep. He lay awake in his quarters, staring at the ceiling as the words repeated in his head. We found the truth. The Senate must know. He replayed the look on the senators' faces when the officer mentioned the human station. Not anger, not curiosity. Fear, deep, silent fear. They were hiding something. But what? Kix rose from his bed and walked the halls of the Senate complex. The corridors were dark, lined with statues of ancient leaders, their stone eyes watching him as he passed. His footsteps echoed softly. His mind burned with questions. He knew where the answers might be, deep within the Senate complex, far from public access, lay the restricted archives, a vault of classified records, things the Senate did not want the galaxy to see. When Kix reached the security doors, his heart pounded. The glowing screen flashed, entry denied. He hesitated, then pulled a small device from his robes. The Forans were not only warriors, they were builders, innovators, engineers. Kix had prepared for this moment. He pressed the device to the lock. Lights blinked. The machine hummed softly. In seconds, the security field flickered and collapsed. The door slid open. Inside, rows of glowing data terminals stretched into the dark dust floated in the stale air. The chamber felt ancient, filled with secrets, too heavy for light. Kix's claws tapped the nearest console. He typed one word, Earth. The system hesitated, as if reluctant to obey. Then hundreds and thousands of records appeared. Files marked with red warnings. Files sealed by high command. Files deleted as if they had never existed. But one file stood apart, old, nearly 1,000 years old. Its title froze his blood. Final Senate Report on Earth's Withdrawal. He opened it. The screen flickered. A man appeared, human, tall, dressed in ancient military uniform. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of finality. This is Admiral Daniel Graves of the Terran Defense Fleet. The figure said. Twyx leaned closer. Earth will no longer participate in the Senate. We are withdrawing from all intergalactic affairs, effective immediately. Kix's breath caught. This was the moment, the day humanity left the galaxy behind. But why? The Admiral continued. We have seen what lies beyond. Kix's claws tightened on the console. We have learned the truth about this universe, about the enemies that watch from the dark. The words pierced like knives. The Senate is blind, the Admiral said. You think you are in control. You think your fleets and your laws keep you safe. Paused, his eyes hard as steel. You are wrong. Kix's heartbeat thundered in his ears. We are leaving, the Admiral said. Not out of fear, but because we must prepare. When the day comes, when the void stirs once more, we will be ready. The screen glitched, the image breaking. Apart, the Admiral's final words were clear, heavy as stone. Pray that we never return. Then the file erased itself. Kix staggered back, his mind spinning. What had humanity seen? What enemies waited in the dark? The door behind him slid open. Step away from the console. Kix turned. Chancellor Over stood in the doorway, flanked by guards. His eyes gleamed with fury. You should not have seen that, Over growled. Kike raised his hands, heart racing. You don't understand. Earth knew something dangerous. That is exactly why you should have stayed ignorant. The guards moved forward. Kix's instincts screamed. He grabbed his hacking device and smashed it into the console. The screens flared, alarms blared, systems shutting down. The guards hesitated. Kix ran. He sprinted through the dark halls, blaster fire chasing him, officers shouting, drones worry. to life. His lungs burned, his legs screamed, but he pushed forward. The docking bay was ahead, his ship his only escape. He almost made it. A stun blast struck his back, his vision blurred. His body collapsed to the cold floor. The last thing he saw was Chancellor Over's cold smile. Darkness swallowed him. Quicks woke to the low hum of an engine. His body ached, every muscle heavy, his vision blurred. When his eyes adjusted, he saw the cold glow of a ship's cabin. He tried to move, but his hands were bound by metal restraints. Panic surged. He remembered the chase, the archives, the Admiral's last words echoing in his mind. Pray that we never return. He remembered the stun blast that dropped him, and Chancellor Over's cold smile as the guards closed in. Now he was far from the Senate chamber, strapped to a chair aboard a ship. You're lucky I convinced the Chancellor not to kill you. The voice came from across the cabin. Kix turned his head. Senator Varen sat by the console, his face grim. Varen was older, his crimson foreign robes creased with years of service. Unlike Over, his eyes carried no anger, only something else, something heavier. Kix's throat was dry. Where are we going? Varen did not look at him. His hands danced across the controls, guiding the ship through the endless void, away from the Senate. Somewhere you cannot cause more trouble. Kix struggled against his restraints. You saw it, didn't you? The archives. Human Admiral. You know what he said? Varen's jaw tightened. Yes, then, Earth left because of something dangerous. Something coming? Why is the Senate hiding it? Varen finally turned, his voice low. Because some truths destroy more than they protect. The words settled over the cabin like ice. Kix leaned forward, chains rattling. The Senate is terrified. I saw it in their faces. They are more afraid of Earth than of any warlord, any empire. Why? Varen hesitated. His eyes flicked to the viewport, where the stars stretched like frozen rivers. Because the Senate fears Earth. But they fear something else even more. Kix's pulse quickened. What? Instead of answering, Varen pressed a few buttons. On the console, a holographic star map blinked to life, filling the cabin with pale blue light. At the edge of the galaxy, a red marker pulsed. The distress signal, Kix whispered, the abandoned station. Varen nodded. The Chancellor ordered the fleet to erase it. Every record, every trace. But I saved one copy of the signal, he pointed. At the blinking light, it came from there. Kix's scales prickled. Why would he want it destroyed? Varen looked at him sharply. Because if anyone sees what's there, the galaxy will never be the same. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the ship. Kix stared at the pulsing red light on the map, each flicker like a heartbeat. The truth was out there. The same truth Admiral Graves had warned about 1,000 years ago. Kix clenched his jaw. We have to go there. Varen studied him, then slowly walked to the restraints. With one swift motion, he unlocked them. The cuffs clattered to the floor. Then, we leave now, Varen said. His voice was steady, but his eyes carried a shadow. But if we find what I think we will, we may not come back. The ship changed course, slipping into hyperspace. The stars twisted into streaks of white. The void folded and stretched as the ship hurled forward. Kix sat beside Varen in the cockpit, watching the endless flow of light. His mind raced. What do you think we'll find? Grex asked quietly. Varen's face was unreadable. When Earth still spoke to the Senate, they had fleets unmatched by anyone. Ships larger than cities. Weapons no one dared challenge. Some say they left it all behind. Others say they took it with them into the dark. Kix frowned. And the Senate let them leave? Varen gave a humorless laugh. You don't understand. He didn't let them. They walked away, alone, and none of us dared to stop them. The words sent a chill through Kix's chest. No empire, no civilization, had ever left the Senate of its own choice. All others had begged for their seats, fought for their votes, traded blood and treasure for recognition, but Earth. Earth had simply turned and left, and the galaxy had let them. The silence stretched between them, until alarms chimed. The ship slowed. Streaks of hyperspace collapsed into stars. Destination reached, Varn murmured. The viewport filled with the sight of a massive station, floating in the cold void. Kek's breath caught. The structure was ancient, vast, its surface scarred with time. Dust and debris clung to its hull. Cracks spread across its plates, yet it still held together, refusing to collapse. Dim lights glimmered faintly, like dying embers refusing to fade. This station was abandoned for centuries, Varn said, scanning the sensors. But look at the power readings. Kix leaned closer. The readouts glowed with energy signatures, pulsing beneath the surface. It's alive. Exactly. Varn's voice was tight, and the distress beacon still active. Kix felt his stomach twist. Then who turned it on? They maneuvered into the docking bay. The landing thrusters kicked up clouds of dust as the ship settled. The doors hissed open. The air inside was stale but breathable. The metal corridor stretched into shadow, lit only by flickering red lights. Every step echoed, too loud, as though the station itself was listening. Kayaks gripped his blaster tightly. I don't like this. Varn scanned the walls with a small device. Neither do I, but we have to see. They moved deeper, their footsteps crunching against dust and debris. Strange symbols marked the walls, human letters long forgotten. By the Senate. The silence pressed in on them, broken only by the faint hum of power still running beneath the metal floor. Then they heard it, a sound, soft metallic click. Both men froze. Kix raised his blaster, eyes darting through the shadows. We're not alone. The sound faded. The corridor fell silent again. Come, Varn whispered. The command center should be ahead. They reached a wide chamber filled with dust-covered consoles. Screens hummed faintly, some still active, their glow casting eerie light on the walls. Kix brushed his claws across a control pad. The console flickered to life. A single message blinked. Last recorded log. Kayaks pressed it. The screen flared. A human face appeared, pale, gaunt, eyes wide, with terror. His voice shook. This is Dr. Elis Carter. We were wrong. So wrong. Static crackled. The man's image shuddered. They told us not to look. They warned us never to activate the last archive. But we did. And now, a deep rumble shook the station. Dust rained from the ceiling. Kix and Varn staggered, bracing themselves against the consoles. On the screen, Carter's voice rose in panic. They're coming back. We thought they left us. We thought we were safe. But we were fools. They never left. They've been watching, waiting. His face twisted with terror. And now humanity is coming home. The screen went black. Kayaks felt his blood run cold. The silence stretched heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the station. Then, a new voice filled the chamber. Mechanical, cold. Final protocol initiated. Stand by for arrival. The consoles flared red. Lights across the station brightened, casting long shadows. Machinery groaned deep within the walls. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. Kix's blaster shook in his hand. What did we just wake up? Varn's face was pale. His voice was barely above a whisper. Something the Senate never wanted us to find. The station roared to life. The floor shook again, harder this time. Dust fell like rain from the ceiling. A deep, grinding roar echoed through the ancient walls of the station. It was the sound of something awakening after centuries of silence. Kix braced himself against the console, his claws digging into the cold metal. His blaster trembled in his hand. The voice still rang in his ears. Final protocol initiated. Stand by for arrival. Varn's eyes darted across the glowing screens as lines of human code flashed faster and faster. Warning symbols pulsed red. Energy. Readings spiked off the charts. This place was never abandoned, Varn muttered, his voice tight. It was sleeping. Kix swallowed hard. His mouth was dry. Before Varn could answer, the chamber lights flared to life. The darkness was banished, replaced with bright white light that felt more alive than comforting. Doors along the walls unlocked with a loud hiss. Panels slid open, revealing old machines sparking back to life. The entire station was breathing again. The consoles before them changed. The previous log of Dr. Carter vanished, replaced by a new alert in glowing red letters. Reactivating fleet. Standby QX froze. Fleet. Varn's face was pale, his eyes wide. No, it can't be. The floor shook again. Louder this time, a rolling vibration that rattled their bones. Then the sound came, low, heavy, like engines stirring after ages of silence. Kix's breath caught. It's not coming from inside the station. They ran, through corridors that glowed with new light, past machines awakening one after another, deeper into the structure until they reached a wide viewport. And there, in the void outside, shadows moved. At first, Kix thought they were asteroids drifting in the debris field. But then light flickered across them. Shapes emerged from the darkness, vast and terrible. Warships, dozens. No, hundreds. Their hulls were blackened with dust and time, but their design was unmistakable. Human. Towering dreadnoughts, sleek cruisers, massive carriers that stretched. Longer than cities. For centuries they had slept, hidden beneath the field of wreckage that floated around the station. Now one by one, their reactors glowed alive, igniting with blue-white fire. Kix gripped the viewport frame so tightly his knuckles turned pale. His voice was a whisper. This fleet. It's still here. Varn nodded slowly, his face pale with awe and fear. The lost Terran Defense Armada. The silence of space was shattered as more engines lit. The ships aligned in perfect formation, their weapons systems humming, their shields activating. Even after centuries, their discipline was flawless, like soldiers waiting only for a command. Kix's stomach twisted. Why would they leave all of this behind? Varn shook his head. Maybe they never meant to. A blaring alert dragged their eyes back to the console inside the chamber. The system was running again, streams of text flowing faster than Kix could read. Then, the station's mechanical voice returned, calm and merciless. Unauthorized access detected. Identify. A red laser flickered across the chamber, scanning both of them from head to toe. Kix raised his blaster instinctively, but Varn grabbed his arm. Don't, he hissed. It's not a weapon, it's scanning us. The beam passed, then vanished. For a long moment, there was silence. Then the screens shifted, forming an image. A face. Human. The figure wore a dark uniform, his head covered by a helmet with a glowing visor. Behind him, holographic displays floated like ghosts. His eyes locked on them with a cold intensity that pierced the room. When he spoke, his voice was low, steady, and sharp as steel. You are not authorized to be here. Kix's throat tightened. Who are you? The figure leaned forward slightly. I am Admiral Victor Hale of the Terran Defense Armada, and you have trespassed on a classified military installation. Varn's breath caught. His voice was careful, almost pleading. This station, still active. Hale's helmet tilted. It was never deactivated. Kix's mind reeled. But the Senate always believed Earth abandoned the galaxy. That you left, that Hale interrupted, is what we wanted them to believe. The words hit harder than any blast. Kix stumbled back, his chest tight. He glanced at Varn, whose expression was frozen in shock. But why? Varn finally managed. Why hide a fleet this powerful? Why leave the Senate? The Admiral's voice darkened. Because we saw what was coming. He pressed a control. The view outside shifted. The entire viewport filled with a massive holographic projection. Kix gasped. A vast armada was moving through the stars. Ships larger than mountains. Dark, jagged, unnatural. Their hulls gleamed like obsidian, their cores glowing blood red. Tens of thousands of them, arranged in perfect, deadly formation. The sight made Kix's stomach lurch. His voice cracked. What? What are they? The Admirals? Face was unreadable. We call them the Harbingers. The word lingered in the chamber like poison. They are the reason we left the Senate, Hale continued. The reason humanity vanished. While you sat in chambers debating laws, we prepared. We studied. We built this. He gestured toward the awakening fleet outside, the greatest war machine in history. His heart raced. The words from Admiral Graves came back to him. Pray that we never return. The Harbingers, it's the enemy in the dark. Varn shook his head slowly. The Senate never detected them, never saw them coming. Of course they didn't, Hele said, his tone almost mocking. The Senate is blind. They believe their power kept them safe. But politics cannot stop extinction. Kix swallowed hard, his voice trembling. Then why reveal yourselves now? For the first time, the Admiral's voice softened, but only slightly, because time is up. A deep boom shook the station. The viewport flickered. Outside, the Terran Armada shifted, engines roaring, weapons priming. The Admiral's eyes burned cold through the visor. The Harbingers are here. Engagement imminent. The station shuddered again. In the distance, the void rippled like water. Dark shapes began to emerge, leak. Jagged ships with glowing red cores. Exactly like the hologram, the Harbingers had arrived. The Terran Armada's silence was broken. Humanity's lost fleet prepared for war. And Kix realized the truth of the empty throne. Earth had not abandoned the galaxy at Earth had been waiting. The station trembled as if a giant hand had seized it from the void. Metal groaned, ancient beams flexing under pressure. Lights flickered, then surged brighter than they had been in centuries. It was as if the walls themselves drew breath for the first time in ages. Clung to the console, clung to the smooth surface. His heart pounded in his chest, faster and faster. As the voice of the Admiral still echoed in his ears. The Harbingers are here. Engagement imminent. The words had turned the silence of the station into something unbearable. Beside him, Senator Varn's scales gleamed with sweat. His eyes never left the viewport where the Terran warships, once shadows, now shone alive. Engines roared like thunder in the vacuum, visible as waves of burning blue plasma. Dreadnoughts aligned into perfect lines. Carriers unfolded their bays, releasing smaller craft that swarmed like silver insects. The void itself seemed to bend to their order, and then beyond them, the darkness rippled again. The Harbingers. Sleek. Jagged ships with glowing red cores broke through hyperspace. Their hulls gleamed like obsidian knives, sharp and unnatural. They emerged in formations, so precise, so mechanical, it was as though a single mind guided them all. Thousands of them, tens of thousands. Kix's throat closed. His blaster hung useless at his side. What weapon could a single alien diplomat hold against this storm? By the stars, he whispered. Varn's voice was a hushed echo. No, by Earth. The station's consoles flared with new light. Symbols, ancient and human, scrolled across the displays. Warning sirens echoed down the corridors, not frantic but measured, like war drums beating. The voice of the system returned, calm and merciless, automated. Defense grid online. Weapons platforms charged. Shield lattice at 80% panels slid open along the station's walls. Machinery hummed, long-forgotten turrets extended, glowing with deadly light. From the outer ring of the structure, massive cannons rotated toward the enemy fleet. The entire station wasn't just alive, it was arming itself. Kix stumbled back, nearly tripping over his own feet. This isn't a station, he gasped. It's a fortress. Varn's eyes narrowed. No, it's a command center. As if to confirm his words, the Admiral's image flickered again on the screen. His helmeted face turned toward them, the visor glowing faintly blue. His voice carried no panic, no rush, only certainty. You are standing inside the heart of the Terran Armada, Admiral Hale said. This station was never abandoned. It has always been watching, always listening, waiting for the signal. Kix's voice cracked. Why here? Why in silence? Why keep this hidden from the galaxy? The Admiral tilted his head, and though his eyes were hidden, Kix could feel the weight of his stare. Because the galaxy was not ready to know, Hale said. and many of you still aren't. The ship outside the viewport rumbled as its massive engines flared. Warships moved in flawless unison, turning as though commanded by a single mind. Their weapons powered, glowing brighter, until eyes stung from the light. Then tell me, Varn said, his voice harsh but steady. Tell me what you've been preparing for all these centuries. The Admiral pressed a control. The hologram of the Harbinger fleet expanded, filling the chamber. He pointed toward it. For them. The image shifted, showing more detail.
Jagged.
Hulls, endless formations. Red light pulsing like blood through veins. They are not conquerors, Hale said. They are not invaders. They are erasers. They do not come to rule. They come to wipe clean. Kix felt ice spread through his chest. His voice shook. Then why didn't you warn the Senate? Why didn't you tell them? Hale's voice was sharp, because the Senate would not have listened. They never listen until it is too late. They sit in their chamber, debating laws, while enemies move in the dark. Wait. When Earth spoke, they laughed. When Earth left, they were relieved. But we knew the truth. We knew the Harbingers were not gone. Another boom rattled the station. Kix looked out the viewport. The Harbinger fleet was moving closer, their ships spreading wide. Enclosing the sector like a closing jaw, the Admiral's voice grew cold. Now you will see why the throne was left empty. Because humanity could not waste time with speeches. We prepared instead. The first Harbinger ship fired. A spear of crimson energy tore across the void, striking at the nearest Terran dreadnought. Shields flared blue, absorbing the blow. For a moment, silence. Then the Terran warship responded. A beam of white fire lanced outward. Faster, brighter, punching through the Harbinger's hull. The alien ship shuddered, glowing red from the inside before exploding in a silent bloom of light. The war had begun. Kix stumbled back from the viewport, his eyes wide. That ship was destroyed in seconds. Varn's face was grim, and there are thousands more. The Terran Armada moved as one, lines of dreadnoughts firing in synchronized bursts. Carriers unleashed waves of fighters that darted into the Harbinger lines. Smaller Terran frigates sped between the giants, intercepting enemy fire, cutting apart enemy wings. But the Harbingers responded with terrifying precision. Their ships fired in perfect rhythm, beams of crimson lancing. Across space, one Terran cruiser was caught in the storm, its shields collapsing, its hull breaking apart in a burst of flames. The void became a storm of fire. Inside the command chamber, Kix could only watch. Its claws trembled against the console. The sheer scale of it overwhelmed him. Armies of ships colliding in silence, each explosion flashing like a new star in the dark. What chance do we have? Kix whispered. The Admiral's head turned toward him. With the Senate? None. With us? Enough. Varn stepped closer. His voice was harsh. Then why are we here? Why let us see this? The Admiral's visor glowed brighter. His words carried the weight of centuries. Because the galaxy needs witnesses. The Senate will never believe until they are shown. You will tell them what you saw. You will tell them the truth. Kix's breath hitched. And if they don't listen? The Admiral's voice was ice. Then they will die screaming. The screens flared again. New alerts filled the chamber. Multiple Harbinger fleets detected. Engaging. Casualties sustained. Requesting command input. The Admiral's head turned. Sharply, as if hearing voices only he could hear. The second wave has arrived. We will hold as long as we can. Then he looked at Kix and Varn one last time. Do not waste the time we bought you. The feed cut. The station shook violently. Kix fell against the console. Alarms blared louder. Somewhere deep in the station, another system roared online. Engines, or weapons, or both. The fortress was fully alive now, its ancient heart beating. In time with the Armada through the viewport, Kix watched as more Harbinger ships spilled into the system, their numbers endless. The Terran Armada met them head-on, their formation tight, their fire devastating. But the storm was only beginning. Varn's voice was barely audible over the alarms. Now I understand why the Senate fears them. KYX turned. Who? Varn's eyes never left the viewport. Because only Earth can fight this. The battle raged on. And for the first time, Kix understood the meaning of the empty throne. It had never been abandonment. It had been a warning. The void burned with fire. The first Harbinger fleet had been torn apart, its jagged ships splitting under white lances. Of Terran weapons, explosions bloomed in silence, debris scattering like sparks across the dark. Yet for every Harbinger vessel destroyed, 2 more emerged from hyperspace. Their glowing red cores pulsing like the heartbeats of some vast, hungry beast. Kayak stood frozen at the viewport, unable to look away. His mind screamed at him to move, to run, but his body refused. The sheer scale of the battle crushed him. It was not war, it was annihilation. The Terran dreadnoughts stood like titans, their shields glowing, their cannons burning bright. Carriers released swarms of fighters, silver darts streaking into the Harbinger ranks. Terran cruisers moved with machine-like discipline, sliding between the fire of giants, their weapons firing in unison. But the Harbingers answered. Crimson beams slashed through the void, carving into shields, shattering smaller ships. A Terran frigate spun out of formation, breaking apart in flames. Karya took a direct hit, its hull groaning as explosions rippled across its surface. Still, the Armada did not falter. They fought with precision. With purpose. Kix's voice was a whisper. How do they move like that? It's like every ship is part of one body. Varn's eyes narrowed. Because it is. Humanity does not fight battles. They conduct symphonies. The station around them trembled with each shock wave of distant fire. Consoles flared with data, red and blue lines marking losses and kills, positions and maneuvers. The Admiral's voice returned, calm even as death filled the void. Enemy fleets advancing on the right flank. Deploy Formation Delta. Carriers. Release Squadrons 3 through 7. Prioritize their cores. The commands echoed through the systems. The Armada obeyed instantly. Kix watched as hundreds of ships shifted their lines, turning in perfect unison. Fighters swarmed, diving into the Harbinger core ships. A dozen enemy vessels exploded in a chain of red fire. Varn muttered, half to himself. No Senate fleet could ever fight like this. Kix turned, his voice shaking. Then why? Hide this? Why leave the galaxy defenseless for centuries? The Admiral's hologram flickered back to life. His helmet glowed, his posture unshaken. Because if we stayed, the Senate would have wasted our strength. It would have demanded control. Demanded pieces of our fleet, our weapons, our secrets. Humanity could not prepare while chained to their politics. So we walked away. And now, he gestured toward the burning battlefield outside. Now we return. Another explosion lit the void. A Harbinger warship, larger than the rest, was split in two by a Terran dreadnought's main gun. For a moment, Kix almost felt relief. Then he saw the other side of the battle. Dozens of Harbinger ships closed around a Terran cruiser, their beams striking all at once. The ship's shields failed, its hull ruptured. In seconds, the vessel was gone. Kix flinched. You're losing ships. The Admiral's head turned slightly. His voice did not waver. War demands blood. The consoles screamed with alerts. New lines of text scrolled across the displays. Multiple Harbinger fleets detected. Reinforcements. Incoming. Sector collapse. Probability rising. Kix's blood turned cold. He looked out the viewport. The Harbinger fleet was multiplying. More and more ships emerged from hyperspace, their red glow filling the darkness. The Terran Armada still held the line, but the enemy's numbers seemed endless. Can you win? Kix asked, his voice breaking. The Admiral's reply was slow, heavy. We do not fight to win. We fight so the galaxy may live long enough to understand what hunts it. The words were like stone dropped into Kix's chest. Varn stepped forward, his voice sharp. Then why tell us? Why let us see this? If the galaxy is doomed, why show us your fleet at all? The Admiral's visor glowed brighter, because the Senate needs witnesses. When they see your faces, when they hear your voices, they will. No, Earth's silence was never weakness. It was preparation. Hicks's mind spun. The empty throne. The silence in the chamber. The fear in the eyes of every senator. They had not ignored Earth. They had feared the day Earth returned, and now that day had come. The battle outside shifted. The Harbingers pressed harder, their ships closing in tight formations. Hicks gasped as 3 Terran dreadnoughts fell in quick succession, their hulks drifting into the void. But for each loss, the Armada answered with merciless precision. A Harbinger cluster was erased by coordinated fire. Dozens of red ships shattering in a single blazing arc. It was like watching gods strike each other. The station itself joined the fight. Its outer cannons roared, sending white lances into the enemy lines. Harbinger ships exploded under its fire. Shield domes rippled across its surface. Glowing bright as enemy beams struck, the command chamber shook violently as the fortress absorbed. The blows sparks burst from the consoles. Hicks stumbled, catching himself against the viewport frame. Varn gritted his teeth. How long can this hold? The Admiral's voice was unshaken. As long as it must, another wave of fighters screamed. Out of the carriers, diving into the Harbinger ranks. Hicks leaned closer, eyes wide. The smaller Terran craft moved with impossible speed, dodging fire, piercing enemy hulls, exploding from within. These aren't just ships, Hicks whispered. They're weapons built for extinction. The Admiral's gaze turned toward him. Exactly. An extinction is what we were forged to prevent. Suddenly, a massive ripple tore through the void. Hicks staggered back as the stars themselves seemed to bend. A new Harbinger ship emerged. It was colossal, larger than any dreadnought, larger even than the station they stood in. Its black hull gleamed like obsidian mountains, its core blazing, crimson like a newborn star. Smaller Harbinger ships swarmed around it, escorting it forward. The Admiral's voice darkened. The first of their command vessels, Hicks's claws trembled. Do you fight something that size? The Admiral pressed a control. Across the Armada, Terran dreadnoughts shifted formation, their weapons charging in unison. The very void glowed white as their combined fire, prepared to unleash. Hale's final words before the blast were calm. You don't fight it, you erase. The void lit up. A dozen Terran dreadnoughts fired as one, their beams converging into a single spear of white light. The Harbinger command vessel shuddered, shields flaring red, its hull screaming under the force. Then, with a soundless detonation that lit the sector, the colossal ship split apart, shattering into molten debris. Hicks's jaw dropped, his chest tightened. He could not speak. Even the Harbingers faltered. Their formations rippled, momentarily broken. Varn whispered almost reverently. That is why the galaxy fears them. The Admiral's voice returned, calm but sharp. We cannot hold forever. The Harbingers are endless, but we can hold long enough. Hicks turned to him, desperate. Long enough for what? The visor glowed like cold fire. For you to run? The consoles screamed. A new alert flashed across every screen. Station integrity compromised. Enemy reinforcements overwhelming. Evacuation recommended. Varn grabbed Hicks's arm. His voice was low but urgent. He's right. We have to leave. We have to take this back to the Senate. Hicks's claws shook. His heart rebelled at the thought of running. But he knew. He knew they could do nothing here except die. The Admiral's voice cut through one last time. Go. Tell them what you saw. Tell them Earth never left. Tell them we were always here waiting. Tell them. The hologram leaned forward. His words dropped like blades. Pray that our silence was enough. Hicks stumbled after Varn as alarms wailed. The corridor shook, panels bursting, lights flickering. Outside the viewport, the Armada still fought, still burned, ships falling and ships destroying. The void itself was alive with fire, but in his heart, Hicks knew. This was only the beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Senate chamber was alive with noise. Voices overlapped in dozens of languages, some sharp with anger, others heavy with fear. Holoscreens glowed across the chamber walls, showing fractured reports of the outer rim, distorted signals. Images of fire in the void. Nothing clear, nothing that explained what was happening. At the center of it all, the empty throne still stood, untouched. The sigil of Earth glowing faintly above it. Kix stood just below the throne platform, his claws tight around the railing. Every eye in the chamber was on him. Some were filled with suspicion, others with mockery, and some carried fear. His voice cracked as he spoke, but he forced the words out. I saw them. The Terran Armada, it is not gone. It was never gone. Humanity has been waiting all this time. A wave of murmurs rolled through the chamber. Senators leaned toward each other, whispering, shaking their heads. Chancellor overslammed a clawed hand against the table. His reptilian eyes burned with rage. Lies, he thundered. The boy is mad. He trespassed where he should not have. And now he spreads human propaganda. The Armada is a myth. Kix's chest tightened, but he did not back down. I saw it with my own eyes. A fleet larger than anything the Senate has ever built. Ships that fight as one, commanded by he. Hesitated. Even saying the name sent a shiver through him. Admiral Victor Hale. Gasps spread through the chamber. The name carried weight, even after centuries. Varn stepped forward, his voice steady. I was there as well. I saw what he saw. Tell you this with no hesitation? Humanity never abandoned the galaxy. They built a fortress, and they prepared for war. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some senators shouted, demanding proof. Others called for silence. A few those old enough to remember the whispers of Earth's power sat in silence. Their faces pale. Kix's voice rose over the din. The Harbingers are real. That is what Earth feared. That is why they left the throne empty. Not because they were weak, but because they were preparing. Now the enemy is here. Chancellor overbared his teeth. Enough. Do not let fear cloud your reason. If Earth truly possessed such a fleet, they would have revealed it centuries ago. This is nothing more than a fabrication. But then the chamber lights flickered. The holoscreens glitched. For a moment, static filled the air, and without warning, every screen showed the same image. A human face, helmeted. Visor glowing blue. Admiral Victor Hale. Gasps swept through the chamber. Some senators stood from their seats in shock. Others leaned back as though struck. The admiral's voice was steady, sharp, carrying into every corner of the Senate. You sit in your chamber while the galaxy burns. You argue while extinction knocks on your doors. You doubt while war consumes the stars. Silence gripped the chamber. Even Chancellor Over's mouth hung open. Words caught in his throat. We left you because you were not ready, Hale continued. We left you because you thought laws and treaties could stop what is coming. You were wrong. And now the Harbingers are here. The image shifted. For a moment, the senators saw at the battlefield Kix and Varn had witnessed. Terran dreadnoughts, firing white lances into endless Harbinger lines, carriers unleashing swarms of fighters, cruisers tearing through enemy formations, explosions lighting the void like newborn stars. And then the camera turned. The Harbinger fleet filled the screen. Endless ships, endless red light. It's an ocean of death pouring into the galaxy. Senators gasped, some shouting in fear, others in denial. One fainted. The chamber was chaos again, but this time it was not political, it was terror. The Admiral's voice cut through the storm. We are fighting them, but we cannot hold forever. The Armada bleeds even now. Humanity's silence was your warning. The empty throne was your last chance to prepare, and you ignored it. The image leaned forward. Hale's visor glowed like cold fire. Now the galaxy must choose. Will you stand beside Asor? Will you die screaming in the dark? The screens went black. The silence that followed was absolute. Kix's chest heaved. He looked around the chamber. The mighty Senate, rulers of 1,000 worlds, reduced to frightened children staring into the abyss. Chancellor Over's claws trembled against the desk. His eyes darted, searching for words, but none came. Finally, it was the far elder who spoke. his voice shaking with age but steady with truth. The empty throne was never abandoned. It was waiting. Murmurs rippled again. But this time, there was no laughter, no mockery, only fear. Varn's voice rose, carrying strength. We have to send fleets. We have to stand with them if we do not silence. Over snapped, but his voice lacked its usual power. He slammed the table again, but it echoed hollow in the chamber. We cannot trust Earth. They left us. They hid from us. And now they demand our loyalty. Kix stepped forward, his voice sharp. They do not need your loyalty. For once in your lives, stop arguing and act. The chamber roared. Some shouted in agreement, others in anger. But the seed was planted, as the truth had entered their ears, and no amount of denial could erase what they had seen. That night, Kix sat alone in his quarters. He stared out the viewport, his mind spinning with everything he had witnessed. The Admiral's voice still echoed inside him. Stand beside us? I'll die screaming. His hands trembled. He had dreamed of serving the Senate, of shaping laws and guiding worlds, but now he understood. None of it mattered if the Harbingers won. The door hissed open. Varn entered, his expression grim. They are stalling, he said. Half the chamber believes us. The other half thinks it is all some kind of human trick. Kix clenched his jaw. Then they will stall until the Harbingers are at their doors. Varn nodded slowly. Exactly. Kix turned to him, his eyes hard. Then we can't wait for them. If the Senate won't move, then we must. Varn's brows furrowed. What? Are you saying? Kix leaned closer, his voice a whisper. I am saying we find Admiral Hale again. We go back. And this time we fight. Far above them, in the dark reaches of space, the Terran Armada fought on. Ships burned. Shields shattered. Explosions lit the void. But still, they held the line. Still, they waited. And still, the galaxy hesitated. Blind to the truth written in fire across the stars, the alarms came without warning in the heart of the Galactic Senate. Deep within the chamber of endless debates, a single shriek tore across the coms. Outer Rim colonies under attack. Unknown fleet detected. The chamber erupted. Senators leapt to their feet, shouting in panic. Holoscreens lit up the walls with streams of data distress calls. Emergency flashes. Broken images of burning skies. KYX froze, staring upward as one feed stabilized. A foreign colony. His own people's world blazed under crimson light, jagged. Harbinger ships cut through the atmosphere, their beams reducing cities to rubble. Civilians screamed, running in terror, their images flickering before static swallowed the feed. Another screen came alive, a far moon station. Its towers collapsed under crimson fire. Thousands of lights blinked out, swallowed by the void. Chamber filled with chaos. Senators shouted at one another in a dozen languages, claws slamming on desks, wings spreading, tails whipping in fear. The reports are false. One shouted. It's a trick of Earth, another cried. But the feeds kept coming, world after world, colony after colony. Fire, smoke, screams. Harbingers cutting through them like predators through prey. Kix's claws trembled on the railing. His voice was raw. They're here. Just like Hale said, they're here. The Chancellor slammed his claws on the desk, over his reptilian scales. Glistened with sweat, but his voice fought to stay strong. This is panic. We cannot trust these images. Earth manipulates us, drives us to fear so that we bow to them. Look outside! Kix roared, pointing toward the massive viewport above the chamber. The senators turned, and there it was. The void itself was changing. Crimson streaks cut across the stars as Harbinger ships burst from hyperspace, not far from Senate-controlled space. Their numbers were impossible to count. Their glow painted the sky red. The chamber fell silent in horror. Kix's voice was barely a whisper. You still think this is a trick? Hours later, panic consumed the galaxy. Reports flooded in faster than they could be processed. Dozens of colonies erased in minutes. Entire fleets crushed. The Harbingers did not stop to conquer. They did not send demands. They only destroyed. Kix and Varn sat in a private chamber, watching the data stream in. Their faces were pale with shock. They're spreading too fast, Varn muttered, his voice low. We have no defenses this far out. They'll tear through half the outer rim before the Senate even votes to respond. Kix's claws dug into the table. Then there's only one option left. He tapped the console. The screen lit with the last image he had saved, the visor of Admiral Hale, glowing blue against the void. We have to find him. Varn exhaled slowly, his eyes heavy. And what then? Kix's gaze hardened. Then we fight beside them. The Senate chamber was chaos again the next day. This time it was not debates or whispers. It was fear. Senators screamed at one another, demanding immediate retaliation, demanding retreat, demanding isolation. The chamber nearly tore itself. Apart, in the center, the empty throne glowed faintly, untouched. Waiting Kayeks forced himself onto the platform. His voice rose over the storm. You all know the truth now. You saw it with your own eyes. The Harbingers are here. And only one power can stop them. Dozens of eyes turned on him. Some were filled with fury, others with dread. Earth, he said. Humanity's armada. The fleet that you mocked as myth. The fleet you pretended never existed. They're out there fighting even now. If you refuse to stand beside them, then you are already dead. A hush spread. The words sank like knives. The far elder rose slowly from his seat, his pale skin glowing in the chamber light. His voice was weak with age, but heavy with certainty. He speaks truth. I have lived long enough to know fear. I have never seen fear like this. The Harbingers will erase us. Unless. His blind eyes turned toward the empty throne. Unless Earth saves us. For once, the chamber fell silent. That night, the stars burned with fire across the outer rim. The Terran Armada fought on. Kix and Varn had returned to the station. Its halls shook with every impact, its turrets blazing into the void. The viewport revealed a war unlike anything in living memory. Harbinger ships poured in endless waves. Terran dreadnoughts split them apart, their white beams cutting like blades of gods. Carriers spewed fighters that swarmed like furious hornets. But even the Armada bled. Crippled ships drifted, broken hulls glowing as they fell silent. Kix clenched. His jaw, he had come back willingly this time. He was no longer the frightened rookie diplomat who had asked a forbidden question. No, he was a witness, and the galaxy needed his voice. Admiral Hale's image flickered before them once more. The voice was as steady as before, as if nothing could shake him. The Harbingers are pressing harder. They are testing our lines. They are searching for weakness. Still the Senate argues. Varn stepped forward. We can speak for them. We can bring you allies. Hale's visor turned toward him. For a moment, silence. And no, the Senate will not act until fire is at their doors. They never change. But you have seen the truth. You have seen what we fight. You can carry the message further than any broadcast. Kix frowned. Further? Where? The Admiral leaned closer. The glow of his visor reflected in Kix's eyes. To the worlds themselves. To the people, the Senate will not move. The people may. The thought chilled Kix, going world to world, spreading the truth of Earth's return, while Harbingers tore the galaxy apart. It felt impossible, but so did the sight outside the viewport. Still humanity fought. Varn placed a hand on Kix's shoulder. Then we will carry your message." The admiral nodded once and listened carefully. "Because what you tell them will decide if this galaxy survives the week." The void shook again. Another Harbinger command vessel emerged, larger than the last. Its red core pulsed like a star of blood. The Armada shifted formation. Dreadnoughts turned. Beams charged. The battle was endless, the storm unrelenting. But humanity had waited for this moment for centuries, and now the Armada was awake. The Senate chamber was silent. For the first time in centuries, no one spoke. No debates, no arguments. Only the heavy weight of fear pressed down on the chamber like a storm cloud. The holoscreens around them flickered with red alerts, colony after colony falling to Harbinger fire. Cities erased, a fleet scattered. The screams of billions echoing through broken transmissions. And still, the empty throne stood untouched at the center. Its obsidian surface gleamed faintly under the chamber lights, the sigil of Earth glowing like a silent accusation. Kix stood. Before it, his claws trembled, but his voice rose clear. This throne was not abandoned. It was a warning. Humanity did not leave because they were weak. They left because they were preparing for this. The chamber stirred. Whispers spread like fire. The far elder lowered his head, pale eyes closed as if in mourning. Chancellor Over slammed his claws on the desk. His voice cracked with desperation. Even if Earth fights, they cannot win alone. The Harbingers are endless. You would have us kneel to humans out of fear? Kix's eyes blazed. Not kneel. Stand beside them, or we will all burn. At that same moment, far above the chamber, the Terran Armada fought on. The void was alive with fire. White lances of Terran weapons clashed against crimson beams of Harbinger death. Dreadnoughts the size of cities traded blows with black titans. Carriers launched endless waves of fighters, their silver trails weaving among the enemy like furious ghosts. Station Fortress unleashed barrage after barrage, its cannons roaring across the dark, but the Harbingers were unrelenting. For every enemy ship destroyed, more emerged from hyperspace. Their red cores pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and endless. Inside the command chamber, Admiral Victor Hale stood unmoved. His visor glowed cold blue, his voice steady as stone. Left. Flank hold the line. Dreadnoughts 6 through 12. Fire on my mark. Carriers redirect squadrons to Sector 3. They're probing for weakness. Not let them through. His words carried across the fleet, and the Armada obeyed. Kix and Varn returned to the station as the battle raged. They stepped into the command chamber, the floor trembling under the shock of distant impacts. The Admiral turned his head slightly. Acknowledging them, "You returned," Hale said simply. Kix nodded. "The Senate debates while the galaxy burns. They will not act. But we will." Hal studied him for a moment. Then he gestured toward the viewport. "Then watch. And understand why we left the throne empty." The viewport flared with light. Harbinger, command vessel, massive as a small moon, surged forward. Its red core pulsed violently. Hundreds of Terran fighters darted at it, their weapons burning, but the giant's shields glowed. Shrugging off the fire, Kix's chest tightened. "How do you stop something like that?" Hulla pressed a command. From the heart of the Armada, 3 colossal ships moved forward. They were larger than dreadnoughts, their hulls bristling with weapons, their cores glowing with power unseen before. "Supercarriers," Hale said, "built for one purpose." The carriers opened. From their bays poured weapons unlike anything Kix had ever seen. Sleek craft, armed with white spears of energy, guided not by pilots but by intelligence older than the Senate itself. They swarmed like living fire, plunging straight into the Harbinger vessel. The enemy ship's shields flared, cracked, shattered the Terran. Dreadnoughts unleashed their fire. The Harbinger giant split apart in a silent explosion that lit the void. For miles, the chamber shook with the force. Kix stumbled back, his claws pressed to the glass. His heart pounded in awe and terror. Hale's voice was calm. "That is why we left, to build this, to prepare for them." But victory was not easy. New Harbinger fleets poured from hyperspace, surrounding the system. The Armada's lines stretched thin, ships burning, fighters falling. For every giant they destroyed, 3 more appeared. Varn's voice cracked. Even you cannot hold against this forever. Hale's visor glowed brighter. His reply was ice. We don't need forever. We need enough. He turned to Kix. And that is why you are here. You and Varn will carry this truth to every world. Not the Senate, the people. They must know Earth has returned. They must know the Harbingers can be fought. Kix shook his head, his chest tight. You fight alone, and we spread words? It cannot be enough. The Admiral's voice sharpened. Words are weapons. Words move worlds. Humanity prepared fleets, but you, his visor burned into Kix, you will prepare hearts. The thought struck Kix like a blow. He wanted to argue. But outside, the Armada still fought, and inside, the Admiral stood unshaken. For the first time, Kix understood. This was not just a war of ships. It was a war of belief, and belief could either save the galaxy or doom it. The Harbingers struck again. A massive wave of crimson fire crashed into the Armada. Terran shields buckled. 3 cruisers fell. 1 dreadnought exploded, its death lighting. The Void God Quat gasped, his claws trembling. The fleet was bleeding, but the Admiral raised his hand. His voice carried like thunder. Armada, fire. Every Terran dreadnought turned at once. Da-da-da-da. Every cannon burned. Every carrier unleashed. The void itself split with white fire. Dozens of Harbinger ships shattered in a chain of explosions. The red tide broke. For a moment, under the storm of Earth's fury, Varn whispered, awe heavy in his voice. Gods help. Us. They fight like gods. Hale's visor turned toward him. It's not gods. Humans. And that is why the galaxy fears us. The station shook violently, alarms screaming, panels burst. The voice of the system blared. Integrity compromised. Enemy forces overwhelming. Recommend evacuation. Kix turned to Hale. What about you? The Admiral did not move. His hands remained steady on the console. His voice was calm. I was born to die here if I must. The Armada will fight whether I live or fall. But you, he pointed at Kix and Varn. You carry the message. Go. Kix's heart screamed to argue, but Varn gripped his arm. He's right. If we die here, the galaxy dies blind. The Admiral gave one final command. Tell them this. Humanity never left.
We waited.
We prepared, and now we return. The feed cut. Kix and Varn ran through the trembling halls, the station groaning under the storm. Fighters streaked past the viewport, Harbinger beams slicing into the fortress walls. Fire rained across the void. They reached their ship. Engines roared. The docking bay doors opened to Chaosteran and Harbinger ships locked in endless fire. The little vessel darted into the storm, weaving between giants. Fleeing into hyperspace, KYX sat in the cockpit, his chest tight, his eyes burning with everything he had seen. The Admiral's words echoed in his mind. Tell them this. Humanity never left. The stars stretched. The void swallowed them. The Armada vanished behind. Back in the Senate chamber, the alarms still wailed. Worlds still burned. Senators still shouted. The empty throne still stood, silent and waiting. But now, whispers spread across the chamber. Not of doubt, not of laughter, but of fear and of awe. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy knew the truth. The throne was never abandoned. It was a promise. Far from the Senate, the Terran Armada still fought. Ships burned. Giants fell. The Harbinger tide surged. But the line held, and across the stars. The galaxy listened to a single message that carried from world to world, whispered in fear, shouted in hope, repeated until no one could ignore it. Humanity has returned. Ow! And the galaxy trembled.